Hello, everybody. My name is Ana Rezende, and in this podcast, I will share my transformational journey to become a health coach. In each episode, I will address a different subject that impacts our health, whether physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. Because I've learned that being healthy means being in balance. If you would like to make amazing discoveries, improve your health, get inspired, and yet find sustainable ways to live and help the planet, tune in. You are in the right place. I'm your host, Ana Rezende, and good is what makes you feel well is Mama Terra's podcast.
Toma banho de cachoeira, abraça uma pessoa amiga, corre na chuva, escala a montanha, contempla a vista, transcende, levita.
On today's episode, I'm talking to the amazing TERRI, the activist for activists, author of Make a Difference with Mental Health Activism and What's on Your Sign, How to Focus Your Passion and Change the World. TERRI is a licensed psychologist and PhD, whose career experience includes government research, managing training at a Fortune 500 company, consulting, and almost 40 years of teaching graduate students. She currently teaches at Walden University, is the treasurer of a credit union, and professional arbitrator for the Better Business Bureau. Years ago, TERRI created Life at the Intersection, a website to promote activism, where she shares her groundbreaking 5-step activism path as an easy-to-use and well-researched process to help people find the cause closest to their heart. TERRI is also an animal lover and activist for veganism. She founded Vegan Blanc County, a platform where she shares her passion and journey towards veganism and vegan resources with the local community. Without further ado, TERRI. All right.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Yes.
Welcome and thank you for coming. I'm so excited. We are finally doing this.
I'm very excited as well. This is going to be fun. And thanks for having me.
Of course. So tell me from the beginning. You went to college and got your psychology degree. And then just when it started to your life move towards activism, how it all started.
Well, I think for my life up till just recently, I never really spoke out when I saw oppression or injustice. I mean, I knew that it was wrong, but I wasn't one of the people that said, hey, stop doing that. I was afraid, really, to speak out. So it wasn't until, my later years and some of the wild political environment that we've been experienced that I realized that I was just kind of riding the bus without paying my fare, and everybody had to speak out. So that was a tipping point for me to say I'm not going to be afraid anymore. Not that it was easy once I said that, but I was definitely passionate about getting off the sidelines. And so my son and I went to the first Women's March in DC. Oh. And that was a big deal for me because...
And where was that?
That was in, 2018, right? It was right after the inauguration.
Okay.
The day after it. And we wrote a number on our arm in Sharpie for aid if we got arrested. We had prepared our phones to, if we had taken, video, that it would be uploaded automatically and wouldn't lose it if somebody took our phone away. All the stuff that, you do when you're afraid of potential violence, right?
Okay.
And we were serious about that. And when we got there, I experienced something completely unexpected, and that was joy. There were people everywhere. It was packed and it was just teeming with joy and drive and passion. It was such a wonderful experience.
Wow.
I was so glad that I went. There wasn't actually a march because there were too many people.
Okay.
To actually put on a street and march. So it was just go around and talk to people and...
People had
great protest signs.
Okay.
So, but when I came back, I just jumped into doing everything because I'm that kind of person, right? And after a while, I realized, number one, I was getting burnt out. And number two, I was just not very effective. You can't do everything for every cause. So I decided that, instead of, heading to the streets and doing my thing, I was going to step back, and I went to the library instead and said, how can I be an effective activist and one that stays motivated over the long term? Right. So I was going to check out a book on that. Well, there's not a book on that.
Oh.
There's not anything about that, really. Most of the books on activism were about specific causes.
Oh.
So then I stepped back and said, okay, well, I know a lot from my psychology background. I'll try to apply some of the learnings I know from the research, like goal setting and staying motivated. And I even went into that academic research. I'm kind of a nerd. But one of the things I found in the academic research was that only 2% of people who start to volunteer stay in it.
Oh.
2%.
Wow, that's
terrible.
Way too little. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was inspired to put together my own process for getting effective. And when I did it, I realized that there were other people like me that didn't quite know how to do this, right? And so I decided I'm going to put it down in a book. And that's where the first book, What's on Your Sign, came about. It's my 5-step path to becoming an effective and motivated activist.
Okay, that is awesome. And then when you actually published the book, when was it?
That was 2018.
Okay.
2019?
Okay. Just 1 year to get everything out of your head and the paper and ready to...
This is kind of a side topic, but I did NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month.
Oh.
It's in November every year.
Oh, I've heard about it. I've heard, yeah.
So I was like, you know what, I can write, a certain number of words a day, and you get kind of support from the website and stuff. So I did. I wrote for the entire month of November, and I had a book at the end. It was not ready to be published, but it got those ideas off.
The first draft.
It's a great thing if anybody wants to do it.
Yeah. It is indeed. It is. Because what they say is that the most important thing is for you to write.
Yes.
Get everything out of your chest, out of your mind, and put in the paper. And then afterwards, you just go back and edit whatever.
Right.
But get it out.
And enjoy that progress that you make. It's very motivating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the first book.
Yes.
And then the second book was the mental health activism.
Yes.
Okay, so actually how the first one led to the second one.
It led to the second one through my friend Trish Lockard, who is my co-author on that book. She's a mental health activist and a longtime volunteer for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And I told her, we ought to write a book that's based on just mental health activism. My first book is very generic. It could apply to any cause. But if you already know that the cause closest to your heart is mental health, then now what do you do? And we made it really specific. All the examples are mental health specific. We have an entire chapter on creative ways that you can do mental health activism, like that aren't protesting and lobbying and things you might not want to do. And we have activist profiles that are mental health related. My favorite one is a lady who, her daughter died by suicide. And, out of that grief, she turned to what she loved doing, which is quilting.
Huh.
So she made a quilt square in honor of her daughter, in memory of her daughter. And then she got other people whose family members had died by suicide, and they made a big quilt out of it.
Oh my gosh.
And then they hung it, I can't remember where they hung the first quilt, but it was for suicide awareness. And it turned into a nationwide progress. She was in Nashville. She was a Nashville resident, but it went across the United States. So they're still doing it. There are memorial quilts for suicide awareness everywhere. And I just love that idea of matching your passion to something that you love doing.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Because you're not going to get worn out if it's something you love doing.
Yeah. And then you will never have to work again.
Right.
Because that is what my husband is battling with me right now. Because he said, you're always working now. You don't take a break. You don't listen to music anymore. Because I am just in love with listening to podcasts. And of course, I want to learn.
Right.
But I have been listening to amazing people, like people that I would never know about, and they are talking in those podcasts and they have like an amazing lessons to teach. I'm just in love. So it's not that I'm working all the time, but everything is related to work just because I am so in love with what I'm doing now.
Yes. The time flies and you're not tired at the end of it.
I'm just having so much fun.
Yes.
It's amazing. So going back to your book, The 5 Steps, can you tell us a little bit more about the steps and how people can, if they want to find their passion or a cause, just a little
I would love to, yeah. One of the things that I recommend is the first step, and that is to find your passion. There are so many different causes, and people who care about a lot of different things. And that's why I got burnt out in the first place. But if you kind of narrow your focus, then you can become really engaged in that one thing and learn, like you talked about learning in your work. You can learn deeply about that one cause. So that's the first step, is finding your passion. And in the book, there are lots of different ways that you can do it, but I suggest that people start with a life vision. It's not related to activism at all, but just say, when I look out 10, 20 years from now, what does my life look like? Start from there, and then kind of narrow down to, well, what things am I most passionate about? The second step is identifying your gifts, which are your skills, your talents, the knowledge that you have, and how you're motivated. We're not all motivated by the same thing. So doing some sort of inventory work on, even just calling your best friend and say, what am I good at, And you might be surprised. I know I've talked to people. There's one lady that when I talked to her, she just made me feel so comfortable and at ease. It was her demeanor and her way of speaking, and I gave her that feedback. She had no idea.
Oh wow, yeah.
That she had that skill. It just came naturally to her. And those things that are natural to us are things that will keep us motivated in the long run.
No, that's the second.
That's the second one. The third one is finding the right method. I talked about the lady who found quilting. We do need protests. We do need people to lobby. And if that's something that you like doing, that's fantastic, but not everybody likes doing that. So finding that thing that is going to keep you motivated over the long run. Like the people that you talked about that are providing podcasts, I'm assuming those are about health and wellness.
Yeah.
They're kind of doing that, right? They're advocating for that. They're kind of activists using a skill that they love, sending out their message. The fourth thing is finding things that are the most impactful. So rather than jumping into something, take some time to say, okay, well, if I want to do this, where am I going to make the most impact? That's not a step most people like very much, to be honest, but it's really important. Do you remember the ice bucket challenge? Where people, you may not, okay.
Oh, people were...
They were pouring ice water
in their bodies, like with a bucket, yeah.
Yes. So that got really popular, and the organization that they were working for couldn't spend the money. There was too much money. So that's an example of maybe there's too much effort on one place and maybe not effort in a different cause. And if you look for those places where there hasn't been as much attention, you might be able to make more impact.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the last step is launching yourself well with some good goals and preparation and setting some goals for staying motivated. And what I recommend for that is just being really clear about how stress happens in your body. Does it happen in a headache? For me, it's a stomach ache. I feel it in my stomach. And once you are used to tapping into that, then you can use whatever coping strategies work for you, whether that's exercise or mindfulness. Catch it before it gets too difficult to manage, I guess is the right way to say it. Mm-hmm. So those are the 5 steps. And it does take a little time to go through them, but I think if you do, you're not going to be one of the 2%, or not going to be one of the 98% that don't follow through with their volunteer work.
That's awesome. Yeah, finding the passion is one of the hardest things. My daughter now, she is thinking about what to do in college, right? What majors. She started taking this peer tutoring class.
Oh, cool.
In high school. Last semester was her first time, and she absolutely loved it. She is in love with those kids, and they love her. The teacher that she helps, and she went to ESL just because we do have a background of being like, bilingual, and they put her with those ESL kids. So there are kids from Japan, China, Hispanic, and all kinds of different nationalities. And she is loving it. Good. So last year she told me that she wanted to pursue teaching. She was going to do something on education just because she was really enjoying. And then she started talking about how much money the teachers make and all that. And she was like, putting everything in the scale and trying to figure. And now she's talking about marketing. Like,
that's severe, isn't it?
She changed a little bit. So I am afraid of how those kids are trying to find their passion and trying to find the financial way of getting their lives together. It is so hard. It's hard for us that we have a certain age and we have like stability and financial security already.
Right.
For them, it's even worse. So I worry about giving them the information and the support they need to really make a good choice. And I think like those books, and every time that we talk about how important it is to actually find something that brings you joy. Yes. That is the way to go. And that is how you're going to be successful.
Yes.
It's hard for them to understand now because they keep asking, well, but I'm not going to make money doing that.
Right.
But I foresee a future that everything that we do with our hearts is going to bring us abundance.
I love that.
Yeah. I didn't have any guidance when I was younger, and I was good in chemistry, and then I not that bad in math, and then I said, well, I'll do chemical engineer. Oh my gosh. And I felt fine. It's not that I hated my jobs, but I was always feeling like, a square in a circle hole kind of thing. I never quite belonged. And I thought I was different because engineers are like really straightforward, and I like arts and I like music and I like all those kinds of different things. Yes. So anyway.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. When I worked at Alcoa, I was in the engineering department, office-wise. I didn't work in the engineering department, but they were just different than me. Right away you can tell. Yeah. And so you didn't feel like you fit in that profession. And so what pushed you to be able to make that change?
Well, sometimes the universe just guides us, right? So I think it was my time. I had the past 5 years working as an engineer. I had just 1 year that I was really engaged and passionate. The 4 other years, I was just, sucking it up.
Yes.
Basically. And then Leo got this job here. We had to move to Tennessee. And I started applying for jobs like I always did every time we moved. I found a very interesting position on Altered State for their continuous improvement to work in the warehouse, something that I really, really have skills. And I thought it was the perfect match. So I researched the company, and their slogan is "Do Good" or something. Do you remember?
I don't. I know it's a cool logo.
It's a cool logo. And I said, oh my gosh, that is so interesting. And I did apply. They have a very cumbersome process, long interviews. I think they do like a personality type of psychology questionnaire. I filled it all out. It took me almost 2 hours doing. I did everything, and I never heard back from them. And I did apply for another handful of jobs here. Nothing worked. None of them. And there was a possibility for me to keep working for the company I was working for, because they do have a facility in Newport that is really close to here. I talked to the regional manager. I told him everything. I said, if you guys want to keep me, I can do something hybrid. I can do all online, or if you guys are interested, I can make it work. I cannot drive there every day, but I can go once a week. And those are the managers that are evaluating me as a high performer. So I thought, well, if they really want to keep me, they will make me an offer. Nothing happened there, neither. And then I was talking to a coworker. We were close friends. We always had lunch together. He knew the way I was eating, and we talked about food and recipes and this and that related to health and stuff. And he said, well, I'm just astonished that nobody got back to you or any of those jobs, and even the company. How come they're not offering you anything? I said, well, I don't know. They like me, they evaluate me well, but I don't know. And then he said, why don't you try to be a health coach? I said, well, never heard about it. I don't know. I don't know that it's this profession or what it is. And he said, no, it's a cool thing. I think you should check it. Then, my phone was there, Facebook, Google, whatever. Then a quiz popped up on my feed. Is health coach a right profession for you?
Okay, that's weird, isn't it?
Isn't that weird?
Yes.
Yeah, Google is always listening.
Yeah.
It's creepy. But that is what happened. And I said, oh gosh, okay, I'm going to take this quiz. And I took the quiz. Then 2 days later, I got this email from IIN, that is the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, a long email with the whole curriculum, everything, all the details about the program. TERRI, it was amazing.
You were so excited, right?
I was just like, my jaw just dropped. And I said, oh my gosh. This is for me. Everything that I love is in this curriculum. Everything that I'm interested in learning is here. How come that's possible? Yeah. They made this for me. And Leo was not with me. Then I called him. I said, I am doing this. I am doing this. I can feel it in my gut. I am doing this because this is the way. And he said, well, if that is true, let's go for it.
Oh, that's wonderfully supportive.
He was super, he was super supportive. Then I registered for the program like 2 days later, and I started doing it. There was not one single day, TERRI, because the classes were online. There was single day that Leo got home, and I was, you won't believe what I learned today. Can you believe this? How amazing this is. That was every single day.
Yeah.
I loved every minute of it. Everything.
And you still do.
I still do.
Yes. It shows.
Oh my gosh.
That you do, yeah.
It was so amazing. What a program. And I kept thinking, my goodness, everybody should learn all those things. Everybody, I need to share. That's why I thought about the blog, because I said, oh my gosh, people don't know this. I have to let them know. And I had the idea to start writing, and then I started writing, and I started loving it. Loving it. Writing and then researching more and learning more and writing more. I fall in love with the whole thing. And then I got some feedbacks from people. Lots of people just love my writings. But it's not something that a lot of people engage on doing, because not a lot of people like to read. You know that. Sadly.
Yes.
And then they kept saying, why don't you record in podcasts? I said, well, yeah, of course, I can do this. And then I started researching about podcasts and listening to podcasts to understand.
Right.
And I said, well, yeah, I can do this. And if this is going to help me get the word out to more people and reach more people, I will do it. And then I did a pilot with a friend of mine, and she was amazed. She said, you have to do this. You are so natural.
You are, yes, very approachable and great information, yes.
And then I said, okay, I'm doing this. And
that's cool.
Yeah, and I'm doing it.
So it is sad that you didn't find out back in high school that was your calling, huh?
Yeah.
But at least you found it eventually, and
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. And that is why I had the idea of the book. And that is what I want to give those young people so they can start looking at a younger age, support and research to do everything and start it right. Because why waste? That's not
It's
that
not
I
a wa-
waste.
it- right,
It's not
it's
that I
not.
waste my time. Absolutely not. No, I'm not saying that by any means. But if you can do it earlier,
Yes.
it's just better. But I know I had to learn, and that's why I appreciate what I'm doing now so much.
Right.
Because I know the dark side. So there is no way to appreciate the light with no shadow.
That's right.
I understand all that, and I'm super glad because my years of engineering gave me knowledge and friends, so many friends. And of course, the financial security for me to be able to do this now is because I worked 25 years and I saved and, 401k and everything else. So I'm really grateful for the whole path. I think I learned a lot in every single step I took.
Yes.
I just feel that they have to at least have the option to try something different or to try whatever motivates them first to see if it works.
Right.
Because it might, right?
Yes. There's a really cool website that you might want to point your daughter and other young people to, and that's 80,000 hours.
Wow.
Have you ever heard
No,
of that?
never.
It's about 80,000 hours is an estimate of how many hours you work in your lifetime.
Oh,
And
80,000?
80,000, yes. And the website is about purpose and finding your right place. Some of the recommendations are if you want to do good, then go into a profession where you're going to be impacting people. Like, let's talk about your daughter. Teaching, right? That's one option. But let's say that she's really good at, let's say, chemistry, like you, right? Go chip off the old block. And she could go to medical school and be a doctor, which might not necessarily be as fun as other professions, but the financial rewards she could invest back into causes that are important to her. So it helps you look at all those options. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to go for the money because you can still do good with that money.
Yeah, of course. Any profession, she can still teach.
And that's true also. And I would say too, I always loved teaching, but I did it on the side. I would have my normal job and then at night I would teach. So I've taught for so many years only because I always did that part-time. And now that's all I do besides the work that I do, volunteer work. That's the only paid work that I do anymore because I just love it. I love it.
Yeah. So everything else that you do, like the credit union and then the bureau, the Better
Business Bureau.
That's all volunteer
It's all
work?
volunteer work, yes.
Wow.
But my years of working in business and saving allow me to do this too.
Yeah, that is what I'm saying. Yeah, it's so a big puzzle. But if we have the right pieces to put together, we can make it work.
Yes.
Yeah. Excellent. You were getting burnt out because you care so much for so many different things and you were having a hard time picking one thing. And I know you were passionate about veganism and all. How did you do to just pick one? How was the process?
Well, I used my own little process that I had researched, and it actually did start with a life vision. I already had one. I'd written one years ago. But I was following, sort of what I had been doing all my life, and were there any threads there? That was one way I looked at it. And being vegetarian or vegan was, for me, not necessarily about health. Of course, it is healthier, but it was about eliminating animal cruelty. So that thread was everywhere in my life. I worked at a vet clinic when I was in high school, and so it was pretty clear for me to see that as something that I was very passionate about. Another way that you can look at it is just what do you love? Your daughter loves kids, right? I love animals. I just adore them. So that was another way for me to look at, hey, that's probably a good area for me. I learned from a class I took from an activist that another way to do it is to ask yourself what really makes you angry.
Oh.
Like, what are the things that, like, if it comes on the news, you can't even watch it. It upsets you so much. We all have those.
Yeah, and she has many.
And so that's another thing. Factory farming of animals was where I landed. You know, that's such a terrible industry for, of course, the animals, but for the environment.
Oh, for everything.
For everything. You know, people who work in slaughterhouses are the ones that are on the margins of our communities. And imagine if you cared about animals and the only job you could get was to work in a slaughterhouse. Factory farming of animals is the biggest source of water pollution. So there's a lot of really terrible things about factory farming of animals. But even that in itself is a big cause, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So there are lots of different ways that you could do something about that. And the ones that I think are really brave are the people that go undercover in the factory farms and document the cruelties.
Okay. Oh, they have to go undercover?
They go undercover, yeah.
Oh.
You know, they film the atrocities and then expose the cruelty. That is something that I could never do. I couldn't watch that happen. But when I looked at other ways that I can make a difference in that, learned about a lady who transformed Kalamazoo, Michigan into sort of a vegan hotbed. Pretty much by herself. She decided that she was vegan and she was an activist. And so she used all her skills to start generating a community feeling for vegans in Kalamazoo, working with restaurants to try to get them vegan options. Just making sure that like new people who were interested in eating plant-based had others they could talk to for support. And so I've been modeling my work on that after, her name is Hillary Reddick, I have to give her credit, after her work. So by starting Vegan Blount County and listing all of the restaurants in our area that have vegan options, and not just a salad, right? It has to be something better. Yeah. I put that up on the website for people to look at, and I also try to promote those restaurants on social media. So that way, restaurants are starting to offer those options on their menu. I actually have seen a difference in the numbers doing that. I'm not sure it's necessarily me. I think it's just the general feel for moving towards plant-based diets in general that's doing it. But you know, if you have one vegan in a large group, they aren't going to go to your restaurant if you don't have vegan options. It's a business decision to start doing that. And so it's a foot in the door to help people find places where they can eat less meat and dairy. Even if they don't want to go vegan, it's so much healthier for them and better for the environment not to eat those products. That's where I landed in terms of my start for that. I support the organizations that do the undercover investigations with money. Because I think it's critical what they're doing. I can't do it, so I provide financial support. And I'm hoping that once we grow the local vegan community, that I can sort of engage them in trying to make a difference on some causes related to veganism too. But, you know, it's just a start right now to get people together. You know, we are working right now in January to support Veganuary. It's hard to say, Veganuary, which is a support program that helps people get started being vegan.
And they have a great website with lots of resources.
Yes.
Yeah, I have subscribed to their platform as well. And
they make it easy.
Yeah, it's not hard, but that is what I was going to ask you. When you started your veganism activism, did you know you didn't know the health benefits of being vegan?
You know, my journey was a little weird because I was focused on animal cruelty, not health. I kind of knew it was healthier, but I just didn't want to eat meat because I thought it was cruel. My husband tells this funny story that I announced on coming back from our honeymoon that I was going vegetarian. And
How many years ago?
That was a long time ago. 38 years ago. We've been married for 38 years. But it seems like I kind of sprung it on him. He tells it that way. But at that point, I had made a commitment that I wasn't going to eat meat anymore. I wasn't going to force him to do that. I would never do that to anybody. Because what you eat is personal.
Oh, it is.
It's
totally.
personal in so many ways. It's cultural. You've been told to eat a certain way your entire life by your family and by the government. That's not something that I'm going to
by the food
people.
industry,
Yes.
by the advertising, and
so I never berate people for what they eat. I just hopefully stay positive and say, hey, try this. I also don't think that maybe in my lifetime that people are all going to be vegan. But if everybody reduces their meat consumption...
Yeah, that's a huge step.
I mean, just even once a week, we could make a big difference for animals and for the planet.
Yeah.
So I try to talk about it in those positive terms about health. But going back to your question, it took me a long time to get to the point of being vegan. But what did it was somebody in a factory farm filming the dairy industry. And I didn't realize how cruel the dairy industry is. And of course the egg industry as well, but it was in particular a video about the dairy industry. And I was embarrassed that I hadn't noticed this before, that I hadn't made this change before. But at that point I was like, I'm going vegan. My poor husband, right? I announced I was going vegan now. I think it was about 8 years ago. But I along the way of becoming vegan, I found the Nutrition Facts website with Dr. Greger and his Daily Dozen. He has a really nice chart for ways that you can make sure that you eat the right things throughout the day. And it, without a doubt, made me healthier. So that was a plus, but it wasn't necessarily what I was looking for.
So can you say that lady was the one that started you in this journey? The lady from Kalamazoo? No.
Yes.
On the veganism activism.
Yes. Of course, I've always talked about, being vegetarian and being vegan. But yeah, I think
she gave you the idea to start Vegan Blanc County.
Yes.
And then
I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't seen her model for it.
Okay.
Which she outlined in a blog post in very great detail. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I can do this. Yeah. She made it so that I could do it. You see,
those are the little things that really touches me, because if she hadn't shared in a blog post her own journey and the ways of doing it, I wouldn't be doing that probably. Yeah. I might have thought about it on my own, but she made me feel like that was something that I could do. Yeah. And that is why I keep doing this, even knowing that not a lot of people read my posts. But if one person, just one person reads it, and for that one person, it makes the difference like she made for you.
Exactly.
I'm happy.
That's coaching, right? That wellness coaching. You can make a difference for one person right in that moment.
Just one person. Yeah, I'm happy.
That's cool.
It keeps me going.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. So on that veganism, so we talked about the factory farming and all that. Our path on that was really similar, because since my early 20s, I have this being vegetarian idea hovering over my head. For other reasons too, nothing related to health. But recently, just knowing and watching all the documentaries on animal cruelty, and that is absolutely so. For me, making my decision was just watching one video from Dr. Zach Bush. I don't know if you know him.
I do.
He is really active on the vegan side and the agriculture, the sustainable agriculture that they call regenerative agriculture.
Yes.
He's a really big advocate for that. And it all encompasses farmed animals and monocultures and the way we treat the soil and all that. So in his lecture, he was talking about a lady that had a panic attack. And he was able to pinpoint the causes of, because of course he's a doctor and he has a lot of knowledge of the human biology, and he was able to trace it back to what she had eaten that day, the chicken that was in her salad.
Oh, how
interesting. And he talked about that chicken in that little cage with no room to move, one pooping over each other and they all being like never seeing the sunlight in their lives, not having even strength in their legs to stand up because they grow so fast that their bones don't have time to catch up with their body. Once I heard that, I said, oh my goodness, how come I'm still eating those birds? Never, ever more I was able to eat a chicken.
Thank you. Seriously.
Because I thought, how it took me so long.
I guess we can't beat ourselves up, though,
It is
right? We're there now.
Yeah, I know. Everybody has their time and their click.
Yes.
So that was my click.
Yes. So thank goodness you provided that example.
Yes.
Right?
And that is what I'm telling you. If we all keep just sending the message, it's going to touch somebody's heart at some point.
Right.
So we just need to keep
that-
sending the
keep
message.
talking about it.
Keep talking about it. And everybody in their own time, because that is what I believe. Everybody in their time. But at some point, yeah, we'll make some progress. But it is important too. And I'm so glad that you decided to speak up after
so many years
because
of being afraid.
And that is so important for our health as well. Not only mental health, but the physical health, because holding everything that really upsets you.
Right.
Oh my gosh, nobody can be healthy holding all that.
Right. It gets back to the idea of that purpose being good for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, talking about your health, I know you had that issue last year.
Yes.
Would you like to talk about that and how
because I learned a lot from this journey. So late last year, I had been taking antibiotics for an extended period of time for a sinus infection.
Okay.
And I ended up with something called C. diff. That's a shorthand for a really long, mean bacteria guy.
Okay.
Like, I can't think of the full name, but they call the disease C. diff. It's a bacterial infection. It's really dangerous and it's contagious. And so I landed in the hospital for 8 days.
Wow.
I've never had to go to the hospital
my goodness.
before, really. I mean, except have babies. But it was frightening. They couldn't control it. They were having a lot of difficulties trying different medications. And what was happening in my gut was the antibiotics had killed off the good bacteria in my microbiome. And these terrible C. diffs had taken over. And I had lost the good guys, and the antibiotics, I still had to take antibiotics to deal with this. They weren't killing the C. diff.
Okay.
So it was touch and go for a while, which, I've never really had an illness before like that. But I learned a lot. Eventually, one of the medications started working. But I had been through the infectious diseases department got involved, and gastroenterology.
Wow,
They're bringing in all
wow.
of these experts to try to figure out what to do. And they were almost to the point of saying, we don't know what to do, which is really scary to hear from your doctor. But eventually one of them started working very slowly. So they let me go home, but I was still contagious, still suffering from the C. diff. It was just, at that point, since I knew it was working, I could be at home, I could sleep. You know how you can't sleep in the hospital?
Oh my gosh,
I just wanted to sleep so much, and better food. They didn't have really good vegan food at the hospital.
Oh my gosh, that is another big topic for another conversation.
Yes.
I just don't understand how a hospital serves like food that is poisoning you.
No.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, I got home, but I was sick for a long time. I probably lost 20 pounds.
Wow.
I looked like a skeleton when I looked at myself in the mirror. When I got home,
You don't have 20 pounds to lose. You never have.
Fortunately, I had a little bit I could lose. If I had been, rail thin, it's scary.
Yeah, it is.
But one of my learnings from all of this was the importance of the gut biome and really treating it well. I know you talk about that in some of your blog posts and such, but I've been doing okay. I mean, we use miso in our food, and we eat sauerkraut and that sort of thing, but I really upped my game after I got home from the hospital. So I was eating tempeh, You gave me milk kefir curds. That's like a sort of a yogurt-like drink that's fermented, so it's got all of those good guys in there that are supporting your gut biome. Sauerkraut, kombucha. I did water kefir, which is a new thing. I told you about that. We might want to talk about that later. It's been good too. And about 25% of C. diff patients relapse. Some of them multiple times.
Wow.
But I didn't.
Oh,
and I
thank God.
think it's because I was pampering my gut biome.
Yes.
I'm going to continue to pamper my gut biome for the rest of my life.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because I learned a lot about how it also impacts your mental health. And
everything.
Yeah, you know more about this than I do, but I'm just now learning how important that is. But the other thing was I was really healthy and strong at the point that I got this. I mean, I wasn't just doing okay. You know, I was exercising on a regular basis. I was eating a really healthy diet. I don't want to know if I had just been eating the standard American diet and not exercising very much, I might have died.
Yes.
So that investment in my health paid off big time.
Oh, yeah,
right
absolutely.
There. The last thing that I learned was the importance of mindfulness. I'd been practicing using an app called Healthy Minds. And I just want to get that out to your listeners.
Yeah, sure.
It's a free app. It's Healthy Minds. It's also evidence-based.
Huh.
And one thing I really like about it is that you don't have to meditate sitting still. Mm-hmm. Like you can meditate while you're doing activities. I'd always had trouble sitting still before. So I had been working my way through this whole, they do learnings and then practice and learnings and practice. And I was really enjoying it and building my skills when I got sick. So I remember sitting in the emergency room before I got admitted to the hospital, and I was a mess, using that breathing, mindful breathing to reduce my stress. Just, for hours I sat there and was just, breathing in, breathing out. It helped so much.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that.
And the other thing that they taught through this app and other places, of course, is a psychological concept called cognitive reframing. Uh-huh. You know what I'm talking about. So instead of saying, I do not want to go to the hospital, I'm scared of it, I've never been, all that stuff that can get you really anxious. In my mind, I was saying, okay, I'm really glad that I'm here, that I'm getting attention from doctors. It absolutely helped 100%. It was the best demonstration of that I had in my life. So that terrible thing, I didn't want to have to go through something like that, but I learned a lot from it and came out the other end. I think I'm now healthier and stronger than I was before I went in the hospital because I'm really paying attention to those, not just things that I eat, but the practices of mindfulness. You probably have a term for that whole
the holistic approach. Yeah.
Yes, that's a good way to say it. So
yeah,
it was definitely a learning for me.
Oh my gosh, that is so wonderful to hear because, I've been healthy. And this was so hard for me because most of my colleagues during my training program, they were doing it for their own health. So they had stories to tell about IBS, about this and that, like terrible Crohn's disease and multiple sclerosis and all kinds of bad diseases. And I was there sitting, oh my gosh, I have been healthy my whole life. I'm grateful, but I don't have anything to actually show people that it worked on me.
That's interesting.
Isn't it interesting?
Yeah, that's good.
It's a good interesting. I'm so grateful that, of course, I didn't have anything like that, but I cannot testimony for myself. And so listening to your testimony on how all those tools that I keep teaching and telling people to start practicing, how that helped you.
Yes.
That is wonderful. Because I know it helps me. What I have now, I have never had before. The mind-body awareness that I have in just noticing how my body reacts from different foods and different environments and different people, and recognizing all that and being mindful and grateful and using all those tools to manage the stress and the triggers and whatnot. So I know it works for me, but I don't have a story to tell on a changing point of my health.
I think what you just said, though, is really important, because it sounds like your whole life you've been healthy, but through some of your educational work, you became even more aware of, I guess, the integration of it and the awareness of it. So you had a place to learn too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the way I am creative now, it's so amazing, because I have never thought of me like a creative person.
That's interesting. Tell
Isn't
us
that
more.
interesting? Well, I was just a regular person, never had like brilliant ideas or anything like that. I was just living, going with the motions. But once I started my morning routine, connecting to myself, I write every morning, and I learned that from Julia Cameron. I don't know if you've heard of her. She is just an adorable old lady. She might be on her mid-80s now.
But probably still thriving.
Yeah, she's adorable. But she wrote this book about morning pages. And she talked about this and how it feeds your creativity. Mm-hmm. Once you start writing down your unconscious thoughts from the night.
Interesting.
I started doing that more than a year back. And now I know that I'm a creative person. So everything that I created was just ideas of mine.
Yeah.
Like everything. And sometimes it's even annoying because Leo gets on my side. I had another great idea. So I have all those great ideas now. And I keep using it. So I write in the morning, then I meditate. And meditation was a big, big learning. It is still a learning curve for me. But the way I feel and express changed so much.
Yeah.
And just the fact that I'm aware and I'm conscious of my thoughts and the way I think. Because it is different. It changes. And like you said, I think it's so important because that is what I try to teach my kids all the time. You can reframe. Mm-hmm. And that makes the whole difference. So I'm reading this book by Jim Kwik, and he is a brain specialist. He's really, really awesome. And the book is really good. But he talks about how the brain doesn't know the difference from what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
And that's why our thoughts are so important. Because once you say bad things about yourself, your brain doesn't know the difference. So he's going to believe on that.
And then your brain learns to, it develops those pathways that are negative instead of positive.
Yeah. So if you keep telling people you cannot remember people's names, guess what? Mm-hmm. You were never going to memorize people's names. Mm-hmm. So I think it's so interesting the way he explains it. And it's exactly what you said. We need to reframe our thoughts because it does make a lot of difference.
It really does. I can testify to that.
Yeah, so I'm really so glad even the breathing, because I keep telling people before my meditation I do a breathing exercise that I learned from Dr. Andrew Weil, and he is another adorable. Yeah, he's another adorable old guy. And he's striving like on TikTok, and I think he's almost 90. I don't know. It's unbelievable. Oh my God. It is unbelievable. But anyway, so I love this breathing exercise. So I do it before my meditation because it just puts you in that state of awareness that is wonderful. But I keep telling people, use those tools, like use the breathing. It costs nothing. It takes 2 minutes of your day.
Right.
Just try it. Right. Be consistent. Do it, because you are going to see the benefits down the road. Maybe not in 6 weeks, in 8 weeks, but in 6 months, a year. It just builds up our strength. Right? Our resilience and everything else. So I'm really, really glad that you were able to use it and see the benefits.
Oh, so much. So I remember sitting there thinking, oh, thank goodness I've been practicing this. Yeah, it worked for me.
Oh my gosh, it's wonderful. Really good. I'm so glad you made it through. And you're oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was a wake wake-up call for sure. I've never been at the brink of death or even close. And yeah, it changes your outlook too.
Oh my gosh, it does. And that is what everybody that has been through difficult health issues say. It's a wake-up call. We all have those moments that we can do better. Oh, I'm glad it will work and you're great and ready to start planting those the gardens again.
Yes.
It doesn't feel like spring today. I was so happy to listen to some birds.
Yes. And I was out finally looking at what survived the snow apocalypse that we had, whether any of my plants came through. And they did. I was surprised.
Well, my sage is still there.
Mine too.
And it's still up. And I have oregano that I'm wondering because it was thriving even in the negatives, but I don't know if he survived the snow. And
my parsley made it. I guess herbs are pretty. Yes.
Okay. So
I was surprised
I have
too.
to check mine.
Yeah. And you know what? Gardening, we haven't talked about that much, even though that's how we met each other. But it's another thing that can really help you holistically. Yeah, it's fun to grow things, but it's also, going out there and, digging in the soil and getting fresh air and exercising is so good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Talking about gardening, what you said about meditation, that you have a hard time sitting still. The other day I saw a post from somebody, I cannot remember, that there are very different ways that we can meditate. We can meditate chopping vegetables. We can meditate gardening. We can meditate whatever moment we can find is stillness in our mind.
Right.
It doesn't need to be sitting down and trying to not think about anything.
Right.
You can just be aware and present and mindful doing something. And that's why yoga is so interesting, because you have to focus so much on the poses that it's a meditation practice as well.
Yes.
But gardening is, listen to the
I
birds.
hear it.
I love it.
Yeah.
But gardening is a meditation, and it's like, for me, cooking is another one.
Yes.
It's therapeutic for me, so I really enjoy it. Yeah. But gardening is just everything together. You got physical exercise. You were outside getting the sunshine. Lots of vitamin D. You dig your hands into that soil, and I keep telling the ladies from the Master Gardeners, take your gloves out.
Yeah.
Put your hands on the soil, because that is richness of microorganisms that we are touching. So it's everything. Then you grow those beautiful vegetables. They're the healthiest they can be.
Straight out of the garden into the kitchen.
And the freshest they can be.
Yeah.
It's just wonderful. It is wonderful.
I gardened ever since I had a place to do it, always growing vegetables. That's all I did. And it took me until I was in the Master Gardener class, which is, we both are Master Gardeners. And I didn't know the science behind a lot of things. And I really upped my game, bringing flowers in with the vegetables. It's like, well, it makes so much sense because you bring the bees in to pollinate. Yeah. Why didn't I think about that before?
Yeah, that's why I decided to join, because I've always loved plants and the idea of growing things. Because I saw my grandma her whole life. She was always gardening and taking care of plants and house plants, and she just loved it. And she had a green thumb. A green thumb. Yeah. But I never studied anything, so I didn't have any knowledge. So it was really great for me to take the classes about the soil, about the pests, because I didn't know anything.
Me neither.
So that's how I started. I started planting pollinators in my garden before I even brought the raised bed. And then when I brought the raised bed, I planted flowers with the vegetables too. And then I did the companion planting.
Yes, that's another thing I learned as well.
Yeah, so I did all that. Of course, that was my first year gardening. I was not super successful, but I was successful in different veggies, and I was really proud of myself.
Fun, isn't it?
It is fun. And besides that, I don't know if you had the chance to read, because I wrote about gardening in my blog. It was interesting because when I started to learn methods,
square foot gardening,
researching different things, the main tool that a gardener needs is a chair.
Okay.
Because you have to sit there and observe.
Okay. I love
and that is how you learn, he said. Because you have to see what kind of insects you're attracting, what kind of animals, what kind of birds, how the whole process is going, integrating and whatnot.
That's really cool.
I thought it was really interesting. And I wrote about being patient and how much that correlates with life.
Yes.
That was interesting because I planted 4 kale plants, one by each other in a corner. One set of seeds just started thriving from the beginning. It grew like crazy. The other one, I thought it was not going to make it. It was just a tiny little plant. Yeah. And I thought, gosh, that is how life is.
Yes.
We plant the same seeds with our kids, and they grow differently.
Yes.
In their own time.
Right.
And we just have to be patient.
And provide.
And give them time and provide what they need.
Yeah, I love
Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
I thought that was a big lesson for me. And then I wrote about that because I thought, oh my gosh, this is something really interesting. So it teaches us everything. It teaches patience. It teaches timing. It teaches nurturing. So many different things. I love gardening.
Well, and I think, for your listeners too, you don't even really have to have a huge garden to get those things out of it. Because we found out that a balcony garden got certified as a smart yard, as a sustainable garden. It's okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I only have 2 raised beds, like 8x3. It's not much. So we can do it with, even indoors, like they're doing microgreens and sprouts indoors, and they are packed with nutrients. So we can grow anything with any space. Right. That's why I decided to do the interview with Barbara and Kevin Naylor from 5 Sprouts.
5 Sprouts is so cool.
They are amazing. Yeah, if they can do with 5 kids and working full-time jobs.
And a small yard.
Yeah, right? They have a half an acre. With a house. So they have less than that to garden, but they actually garden everywhere. Yes. Like the whole land. And that is a dream come true for me. Look at Royal Oaks, for instance.
Yeah.
How much land we have.
Yes.
Can you imagine how much food we can grow?
Or even if we just get rid of our lawns and plant native plants, even if it's not food-based, that's
pollinators,
great too, right?
At least. Yeah.
And so many opportunities.
Oh my gosh, this is something I'm really passionate about. But like I said, I had to focus on one thing because I cannot do everything. But I thought, well, gardening ties in really well with what I want to do. So that's why I decided to Master Gardeners program. And I'm trying to manage to keep it engaged in the community doing that, just because I think it ties so well with health and wellness.
It really does. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
It's been fun.
It's been fun. Anything else that you wanted to talk about?
I think, I hope that people will maybe really just start with their life vision and let that all drive what they do. And hopefully their life vision includes things like helping the community, being healthy themselves, and just really impacting others. I think that if we always go back to that kind of as our North Star, we can be successful and purposeful in our life.
Yeah, that is very true. And I think most of us just live the life without thinking about those things. We just keep going. It is important to, at some point, stop and readjust. Is that really the path that is bringing me joy and fulfillment?
Right.
Because all of us, we can do better.
And everyone deserves that, to have that feeling in their lives, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tell people where they can buy your books and find you and your platforms and all that.
Okay. So my lifeattheintersection.com is my website about activism. So if anybody's interested in getting started, there's resources there for helping them do that are kind of companions to the books. And you can buy our books there, but also you can buy them on Amazon. You always have to have your books on Amazon because most people go there to buy their books. But if you buy on Life at the Intersection, we donate the proceeds to different causes. And the Vegan Blount County, for those of your listeners that are in our area, veganblountcounty.net is the website that has the list of vegan options. And there's a Facebook community associated with that too that people can join. So I hope that people will.
I hope so too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. I really enjoyed you.
I did too.
That was great. Thank you guys so much for listening. It means a lot to me that you chose to be here. To help Mama Terra's mission of making the world a disease-free place for generations to come, you can follow the show, write a review, or talk to your friends about it. You can also subscribe to my newsletter. Every week, I craft good health and wellness tips, recipes, and book recommendations with love and care, just for you. My intention is to give you information and resources to help you make good choices and feel well. Find the link to subscribe in the show notes. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Thank you again for being here. We have lots of new episodes coming up, so stay tuned. And remember, good is what makes you feel well.
Toma banho de cachoeira, abraço uma pessoa